Hello everyone, welcome back if you've seen any of my videos, and welcome to anyone that's new to this channel. If you're new, you can like, comment and subscribe. And just so you know, this is based on my own experience, that if you have a completely different experience, just let me know. But let me explain the tiers before I get into it. So too easy, it means that it's easy access, that anyone can do it. And because not everyone is doing it, that's why it's too easy. In this tier list, the word easy, it just focuses on how you come across to other people and your whole presentation. When it comes to the challenging part of the tier list, you may have to start conversations, you may have to face rejection. Pretty hard is when people only judge people on their appearance. The reason why pretty hard is so low on the tier list, and why I'm explaining it now to you, it's because pretty hard is when people judge other people based on their appearance, based on their presentation, and people are very brutal with their rejection. And impossible is when people face rejection, and it's really up to you how you really take it. But impossible is when it's really hard, where it requires so much effort. You basically have to focus on your strengths, and your strengths could be based on your clothing style, your appearance, your social skills, and even like your connections. And without those connections, you can't really meet new people. And that's why it's impossible, because it requires a lot of effort, but only a few people are getting it because they have more connections. I'm making it clear of all the tiers in my tier list, and I'm going to get into this video. The first one that I wanted to say is about Instagram. And I use Instagram more just to increase my connections on social media, to really present myself online, because I'm always telling you to put yourself out there. But where I would put Instagram, I'll put Instagram on easy. The reason why I'm putting Instagram on easy is because on Instagram you have to create a profile, and that's the same with everything else that is online. But you have to make sure with Instagram that you focus on your presentation, you have a profile, you have posts. Because for example, people focus on followers as well. And people are less likely to follow someone that follows a lot of people, but then a lot of people are not following them back. The reason why I'm putting Instagram on easy, for just in case you didn't hear me, Instagram, you need to put in some effort. Like for example, you need to engage in other people's content, you like other people's content you follow, and you have a profile so that people know who you are. If you have no profile and you're requesting to follow people, it can be very off-putting. People feel safe when they know that you've got a lot of followers. They focus more on your presentation, your followers, and how active you are on Instagram. So continuing on from what I said, Instagram is like another dating app. This is the last thing that I'm going to say on Instagram. For example, you message someone on Instagram and they see your message, but then they leave you on red and they don't respond back. Because on Instagram, it's just easier for you to message people on Instagram, so that's really good. Because, for example, if you have a private account, not anyone can message you. You have to accept the message first. But then another thing with messaging on Instagram, it's a lot easier to navigate. And when it comes to Snapchat, people look at people's locations. But then I used to do this thing that because there was people in my local area, I would just add them. But then with Snapchat, you don't know how people are like, so that's why I put it in challenging. And it's much better to meet people in person than to add random people on Snapchat in your area. And it's more effective that way. And just remember, this video is based on my experience. You can comment down below what your experience is like. But another thing with Snapchat, why it's so challenging, is because when you message people, it's always being left undelivered. You have to realize that whenever you're messaging people, it's always left undelivered. So that's why you don't just add anyone on Snapchat. You at least share your location with people that you trust, and you turn it off for other people. So that's all I got to say on Snapchat, because with me, I'm not really active on it, but I do see people's stories. And it's not always, because you need to have things that you're doing yourself. But I'm moving on to TikTok now. The reason why I put TikTok on easy, if you're a person that's very active on TikTok and you're always posting, you may not see a lot of messages because all the messages seem to be unorganized. And it could be just TikTok, but that's really my thoughts on it. And when it comes to TikTok, people send a lot of people short videos. And that's what I do like about it, because on TikTok, it's really about short videos, quick videos, to really grab people's attention. If you're a good communicator, then TikTok is for you. But then if you want to be a good communicator, TikTok is also for you. But when it comes to meeting people, maybe TikTok isn't really the best for that. You can use TikTok to improve your communication skills and focus more on commenting on people's videos. Because when you comment on more people's videos, you can then meet people that are more like you. Because if there's certain videos that you like, TikTok will just keep on doing that. And that's the same for Instagram. But with TikTok, people are more likely to comment, they're more friendly, they're more opinionated as well. Like, I've had a few hate comments, but I don't let it get to me. And it's about realizing what social media app you're really on. Because when it comes to social media, you have to socialize with people. You can't always expect people to socialize with you first. If you want to meet people on TikTok, it's really about engaging, and it's really about focusing on the comments, liking people's posts, and actually posting yourself. So for example, you may go on holidays, so you can always post that, because you're showing people other areas that they haven't been to. I would rather meet people through TikTok comments than Instagram comments, because people on TikTok comments, they keep the conversation going, they're more opinionated, whether you like it or not. What I would say about Instagram comments before I move on is that when it comes to Instagram comments, people aren't really as engaged. And the reason why it's a shopping mall is because people are most likely shopping or browsing, and people are more focused on what they're doing. So they aren't really going to have much time to really at least speak with you. And I think when people start to approach other people in shopping malls, it's either to sell something, they may not feel safe. So that's why when it comes to shopping malls, that's why people are always in groups. It's better to go to the shopping mall with friends, so that you have things that you're actually talking about, you have things that you can actually look at, and you don't want to go to the shopping mall all the time by yourself. And expect that as well, because when you're in a shopping mall, people are mostly in a rush. So that's why I would say it's pretty hard, because no one really has the time to stop and actually talk to you. And if you're lost, you're just better off with and if you're ever lost in a shopping mall, because it's usually in a circle, you just might as well walk around and then just ask one or two people questions about it. But the next one that I'm going to say is Bumble. And for me personally, I would say it's challenging. And the reason why I would say it's challenging is because the women have to message the guys first. And because they normally do one-word answers, and they either use a prompt. So they use a prompt, and it could be describe yourself, it could be what films do you like. I'm just thinking on the top of my head here. But the reason why it's a challenge on Bumble is because obviously you're trying to match with each other, but you have to make sure that you keep the conversation going. And for the most part, people do seem to want to be friends on that app more, from what I've noticed. And it's because the longer that you try and have a conversation with a woman, for example, I'm a guy now, and if I'm having a long conversation with a woman on a dating app, it's really hard to move it over to social media, because they already know everything. So that's why if you're ever going to meet someone on Bumble, you have a few exchanges through text. You just introduce yourself and then ask 2 to 3 questions. And the reason for that is because you don't want the conversation to be too long. And then once you've done that, you can move it over to other apps such as Instagram. And if you post, people are going to be more intrigued, because if you go from Bumble to Instagram, the pictures that you have on Bumble, you most likely post it on Instagram as well. If you meet people on Bumble and then you don't have any Instagram, no posts and no profile, do you expect the woman to at least want your number? They're going to be very hesitant to give you their number straight away. So that's why Instagram is much better, so that they can feel familiar with who you are as a person. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say on that. And for me personally, I would say it's impossible. Most of the girls on there are active, but the only thing is that people only look for one thing, and that's really a hookup. I try to better my standards. I go on there from time to time just to see how my photos are doing. And I think Tinder is not really the best place to meet people. Maybe other people it works out well, but for me it hasn't worked out well. And for example, if you're like me and it hasn't really gone well through like DMs, for example, you may DM someone and then they take hours to respond. But then when they do respond, it's like one word answers again. With Tinder, this is my opinion, it's really focused on your appearance and everyone has a preference. So that's why I'm saying this now, that when it comes to Tinder, at least from my experience, the women on there, they take a long time to respond. And the thing is, because of like the way the app works, you can easily match with someone and you may match with someone on accident. So that's why I don't want to be that person that when I match with someone, they no longer feel interested. And I don't want it to get to a point where I spend so much time on that app that it doesn't lead to anything. That's why people say you need to use 3 dating apps rather than just one. Because if I relied on Tinder, my dating life will be like non-existent. I'm really focused on how my photos are doing. So that's why you can use dating apps to see which photos of yours are like performing the best. And it's kind of like sales, it's kind of like business. You need to know who's interested in you or who's interested in what you're trying to sell and to see who's going to stay in the long term. Because it's really about investing your time. You need to focus on what makes you stand out compared to everyone else. If you're dressing the same as everyone else, you may get results, but then it may not be the person that you're looking for. And that's all I'm going to say on Tinder. And I'm going to move on to Hinge now. You don't just judge people based on looks, but you actually have conversations to see if it goes anywhere. Otherwise, you're just wasting both people's time. And that's just my opinion. But for Hinge, I would say it's pretty hard. It's not impossible, but I would say it's pretty hard. Because with Hinge, it's like more appearance based. And with Hinge, you have to focus on the location. And that's something that you have to really consider. And every single person that you may see on Hinge, they're in different parts of London. But with Tinder and with Bumble, the location thing is more easier because with Tinder and Bumble, the location thing is more easier where you can find someone closer to you. So with Hinge, the location seems to be further away. And it's very hard to meet someone in your area. So that's why you get less matches on Hinge. Because this is for people that are very serious with dating. And I forgot to say that with dating apps, you can like make friends on there. But you don't want to be friend zoned. Like, who really wants to get friend zoned? Not me for sure. But yeah, let me move on now. Out of all the dating apps I've seen, Hinge, Tinder and Bumble, I've had the least success on Hinge. And you would think that it's like Tinder or Bumble, but it's really Hinge that I haven't had that much engagement in. But yeah, let me move on to LinkedIn. Over the past 3 years, I've been trying to like increase my connections on LinkedIn. And because of like my area, because of the area that I'm in now, and also the connections that I made from university, with LinkedIn, this is where people focus on their careers. If you focus on your presentation where you dress smart, you post more on LinkedIn about your career, and you work so hard in your career in real life that you earn more money, because you earn more money, you're going to start to keep people in the long term. And that's what relationships are about. Not just money, but hear me out. It's because, for example, if you have a lot of money, you're more likely to take people on more experiences. They're more likely to have unforgettable experiences. And you want people to date you for you. People will respect you more because of your high status on LinkedIn. Like, for example, you're a manager, you're a supervisor. And I'm not talking about people that have like not the best career or they're not where they want to be. If you have a good career, a career where you're happy in, a career where you're fulfilled in, you can use that to your advantage on LinkedIn and you can meet people through that way. LinkedIn is similar to mutual friends because other people can see that you know someone else, which is similar to them. Because you know someone else's mutual friends on LinkedIn, they are more likely to add you back on LinkedIn. And you don't want to be that person where you're using people based on the career that they have. On LinkedIn, it's very good to take people's advice and to do everything you can to have a good career. And then once you have a good career, then you can think about being with someone. But if you want something casual and something short term, then just do what you want and ignore what I just said now. So that's really important when it comes to mutual friends because no one is going to say anything bad about you. And because you know this one person in common, it's very easy for you to meet that person again. And afterwards, you can contact the person that you want to talk to through your mutual friends. And that's really all I got to say on that, because everything that I said for LinkedIn is the same as mutual friends. But the next thing that I'm going to say is group events. If you're someone that's not really social, or you're very introverted, you have to realize that the people that are very social, they are the ones that are leading the conversations, they are the ones that are involved in more activities. And for example, I have been introverted for a long time, but I have good social skills. And if I have good social skills, I can talk to anyone. If you focus on putting yourself out there and talking to more people, you're going to become better over time in group events. So when you're meeting new people in group events, you don't want to judge someone until you've actually met them. And you don't want to be that person where you only hang out with a few people, but instead you try and know different people. When you get to know different people, they think differently and they teach you different things. And you never know of who you really meet and what you can learn from them. That is all I got to say about group events. Because when it comes to group events, you have to realize that sometimes you're listening to one person talk and everyone is seated in the audience. Or sometimes you're doing a group activity and that breaks the ice. But you want to be that person that introduces yourself first. And you want to be that person that starts conversations with other people and to lead the conversation. Because if someone else leads the conversation, they start to tell you things that they know. And if they ask you a question and you don't know, it's not going to look good. So I'm continuing on from what I said. In group events, all you have to do is really put yourself out there and to really look for people that you can really meet. And when I say new people, it means people that you don't really interact with normally, because it gets you out of your comfort zone. And that's all I got to say about group events. Because people that are extroverted, I'm not going to assume that all of them love to talk, but for the most part, that bit comes easy to them. But people that are like extroverted, I don't want to assume that all they do is just talk, that sometimes they need that time to themselves. It's just that, for example, I'm an introvert and I don't want to label myself as that because I've slowly changed for the better. So yeah, that's why it's really good for someone that is introverted and someone that keeps to themselves. It's very important to get yourself out of your comfort zone and do group events. But I'm going to move on to the next thing. And another way of how to meet people is through high streets. And I would say this one is impossible. You may embarrass yourself. Let me move this down a bit. You may embarrass yourself by approaching people at a high street, and I've done that before. It's not my proudest moment. It's similar to shopping malls where people are in a rush, but the only thing with high streets is because it may not be clean, people may be in a rush, people may have not been to that high street before. And it's very important that if you ever approach people in a high street that you stand in front of them and not behind them. If you stand behind someone and you're shouting, but then also you're tapping them on the shoulder, it can scare them. And with a high street, it may not be clean, people may have not been there before. So that's why I would say high streets are very impossible. And it can get really crowded as well, which makes it not safe. So that's all I've got to say on high streets. I probably won't do it again. But if I think about it, it's good to try something new. So I take back what I said. It really depends on who you really meet. The last thing that I'm going to say about meeting people at a high street is to meet them during the daytime, because it's a much more smoother experience. And that's all I've got to say on high streets. But the next one that I'm going to say is traveling to a new city or country. And the reason for that is because if you don't learn how to speak the language, it's going to be hard for you to find new restaurants, find new cafes. It's going to be hard for you to have a basic living in a different city or a country. Because for example, if you're outside of the UK and you're coming into the UK, or for example, you're in the UK and you're going outside of the UK, you have to realize that people do speak different languages and people have different lifestyles and there's time differences, and you may not be used to the new environment, and you might realize that traveling is a lot stressful if you do everything in the last minute. So that's why I would say it's challenging, because when it comes to travel, you have to be paying attention more. And if you make a simple mistake while traveling, you're not only wasting your time, but you're wasting your money. And I feel like whenever you're trying to travel, you're focused so much on yourself And then you realize because you're so focused on yourself, you're not really getting to know anyone else. And when it comes to traveling, you may be stressed out, you may be overthinking everything, that you may even forget stuff. And because you forget stuff, that's why you may be put off traveling, because traveling can be very stressful. But what I'm going to say about it, when it comes to traveling, I don't travel unless I need to. But I do understand that I can learn new things while traveling, and I can meet new people while traveling. And that's the same thing for you if you ever consider traveling. And you don't have to travel far away. That's why I said city or country. When people travel, they may travel to where they're from, or they may travel to where their friends are from. And that's why it's really good to travel with other people when you are traveling, just to feel safe. And to just do things ahead of time and be organized. While traveling, it's good to travel in a group. Because in a group, someone can be the bodyguard. Someone can focus on the activities, plan the activities, like what time is this happening, where are you going, when, and who are you going with. So yeah, I'm going to move on because with traveling, I could talk about it a lot more. And it's not like I travel to too many places, but when it comes to traveling, you always have a new experience. Not only are you rushing while traveling, you're having an adrenaline rush, and you're always like seeking a new experience. So that's all I got to say on traveling, and I'm going to move on to the next one now. These are the last 3 things I'm going to say. When it comes to FaceTime, I would say it's pretty hard. And the reason for that is because when it comes to asking for people's numbers, that bit is already hard enough. But to get someone on a FaceTime, they may not want to do it. Because if you think about it, people may have insecurities. They may think that their skin is not good. They may not like how their voice sounds. But yeah, that's just me talking. It could be completely different for anyone else. But this is based on my experience, because when it comes to FaceTime, it may feel so awkward. The more that you do it, you'll get better at it. But I think for me personally, I would prefer FaceTime over a phone call, so I do understand. Before, I would have preferred like text messaging or a phone call. But I think seeing someone's face, you get to see them sort of in person, if you know what I mean. I'm going to make this point super quick because I feel like I've been here longer than I needed to. But when it comes to phone calls, it's similar to FaceTime, but the only thing is that it's really hard to get people's numbers. And there's always people that are doing prank calls, it may be an unknown caller. And that's what I got to say about phone calls. If people have a good first impression of you in person, they are more likely to give you their phone number. And that's only when they really like you. So that's why you have to focus on how you come across to other people. When it comes to getting people's phone number, you have to focus on how you come across to other people and really your presentation. So that's why I would say at the moment, I would say phone calls are impossible. When it comes to phone calls, it's about building trust. And that's what I've got to say about that. When it comes to bars or clubs, this is the last thing that I'm going to say. I added bars and clubs in the tier list because this one's a random one for me. I do want to go clubs to socialize with people, but I don't want to be like doing the drinking. A bar and a club is like a dinner date, because the longer that you're there, you're spending more money and you're just sitting there and not really doing an activity. And that's why when you're first meeting people, you really want to do an activity. So it can be a walk in the park, it can be bowling, but that's really me. That's all I've got to say on this. And thank you for watching the video. I've been here longer than I really need to, and I'll see you in another video.